Maybe. We are currently setting up the stream. We are setting up the stream so much that we don't even have the setting up the stream sign yet. There we go. We now have the setting up the stream sign. Woo, okay. This is gonna be a Moby Dick stream. Okay. So let's post the what we're reading link. Is that gonna work? Why did it jump me to chapter 100? I wanted chapter 99, the doubloon. Let's make sure we're actually live. Welcome, Leafum, in the Twitch chat. Welcome to Iconic Anemone and Calvin and Pluto in the YouTube chat. We are currently getting set up. Normally I'd have music that covers a lot of this stuff, but it's just me doing it live. Because we can't do music if we want to have a VOD go live at the end of the day. Because there's a bunch of problems with using music in VODs. Hey. Oh boy, is it getting dark? It seems like it's getting a bit dark out here. And I'm the only one on the server. So we're going to run back inside real quick. And frantically get to bed, laying our heads down to dream. Okay, we're gonna update our live reaction settings here on YouTube. Welcome, El Minty Raiders. My name is Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live from Nashville, Tennessee. We're about to start reading chapter 99 of Moby Dick. Welcome, Dylan. Welcome, Tabby. Welcome, Frog. Okay. Dark Ocean Phoenix, welcome with the El Minty Raid. Glad you could join us. Welcome, Shamir, Mocha Flips, Mushroom Noodles, Sir Falls. Okay, so we are basically at this point entirely 100% out of rockets. And I still haven't found my wallet. How are we on Elytra? Elytra's okay. So, yep. Jason So says, decided to check out your stream after seeing your episode of the Imp and Skiz podcast. Awesome. I had a lot of fun on Imp and Skiz the other day. That was pretty great. Just so you know, if you did catch that podcast, you might have heard me saying that on Saturday nights, I read chapters from a novel live while I do really grindy tasks in Minecraft. So we're about to be doing some really grindy tasks in Minecraft while I read Moby Dick. Sir Fall says, I love that episode. Thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, we just had it on in the living room while I was editing my next episode. And my daughter at the end was like, what? We're not in a car. I'm not on my Nintendo. And I'm like, well, not this time. She was like, you got it right that it was night and nothing else. I'm like, sure did. Yep, I was on Friday's episode of the Imp and Skiz podcast. So if you're a big fan of that, go ahead and you can check that out at your convenience. Pluto says, it's my first time tuning into a Moby Dick stream. Awesome. Just to give some folks some background who might not know, the reason that we are reading Moby Dick is because it is the most predictive novel about the future of communication that isn't actually a science fiction story. This book is the most sci-fi thing that isn't a sci-fi thing. The entire book is written like a guy at a party is trying to tell you a story about the time he thought he was Holden Caulfield and tried to go whale fishing. And like he's constantly like referencing things on his phone and going down Wikipedia rabbit holes. There are chapters of this book that like people are like, you know, I really dropped off in Moby Dick when he got to the chapter where people are or where the guy is like ranking the different types of whales. Why do you need to make a list of the different types of whales and rank them? And it's like, because this is a book about anticipating the invention of the internet. Most of it's Wikipedia, but some of it is forum posts where somebody is just like, hey, let me tell you why the different versions of Spider-Man are not equally good and the actual order that they should go in if you were going to rank them, okay? Moby Dick is absolutely cutting edge, ahead of the curve. Ooh, we did have some fireworks left. Okay, we're going to put those in our bundle for later. But yeah, Moby Dick is absolutely ahead of the curve on how, like, information is exchanged in the modern era. It was written in the 1850s, but it understands right now. So, this next chapter is kind of a weird one. In that there's a lot of sentences. Basically, a bunch of people are watching Ahab look at a coin, and it starts with Ahab kind of talking to himself. And then it gets weird. Ahab starts off talking to himself, looking at this coin, and then it has, like, what everybody else is thinking to themselves while Ahab is looking to this coin. And it's... Did we get past the whale chapter yet? There's so many whale chapters. There's an entire chapter about whale skeletons we're going to get to next week. Don't worry. Don't worry, it's coming. But yeah, good evening, Centauratron, Mailman, Dave, and MJ in the Discord chat. A few things I need to post links to before we start reading. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. If you enjoy the show, feel free to tip. I'm not going to read the tips in the middle of a sentence, or often in the middle of a paragraph, or in the middle of a chapter. Sometimes, if a chapter is very long, I might take a break in the middle of it to read some tips. But, yeah, so if you do want to show your appreciation for the show, now is a great time to do it. This is a viewer-supported stream. I'm down here in slot 9, putting the hot in the hot bar. Camera gets bigger every time we hit a tipping milestone. We start off $20 away from that first milestone. Okay. Also, well, I turned down minecart sounds. Yeah, well, the thing is, that's not its own thing. I'll turn down friendly creatures. Because minecarts are creatures. Welcome, Jen K. Okay. So. Let's see, what else do we need to mention before we get going? Anybody who... We've already... oh, wait, did I pin the link with the... what we're reading? I need to pin that in both Twitch and YouTube. Did I post it in both places? No. Okay, so yeah, let's get the chapter link up. What we're reading. Okay, so that's pinned there and there. Great. Okay. Let's see. If you want to catch up on Moby Dick in the future, here's the playlist of the previous readings also. And if you would like to keep an eye on the stream schedule, you can always find that stream schedule at joehills.net/soon. Okay, I think we are set up now. So we're going to take down that setting up stream sign. And we are going to do a quick hard refresh over here on the Patreon. Or, not Patreon. PayPal. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, as a reminder, Patreon. $5 a month gets you on the Discord. $10 a month gets you access to the Minecraft servers. Okay. I think we have compressed all the setup tasks into the first few minutes of the stream, so we can actually read Chapter 99, the Doubloon. Ere now, it has been related how Ahab was wont to pace his quarterdeck, taking regular turns at either limit, the binnacle and mainmast. But in the multiplicity of other things requiring narration, it has not been added how that sometimes in these walks, when most plunged in his mood, he was wont to pause in turn at each spot, and stand there, eyeing the particular object before him. When he halted before the binnacle, with his glance fastened on the pointed needle in the compass, that glance shot like a javelin with the pointed intensity of his purpose. And then, when resuming his walk, he again paused before the mainmast. Then, as the same riveted glance fastened upon the riveted gold coin there, he still wore the same aspect of nailed firmness, only dashed with a certain wild longing, if not hopefulness. But one morning, turning to pass the doubloon, he seemed to be newly attracted by the strange figures and inscriptions stamped on it, as though now for the first time beginning to interpret for himself in some monomaniac way whatever significance might lurk in them. And some certain significance lurks in all things, else all things are little worth, and the round world itself but an empty cipher, except to sell by the cartload, as they do hills about Boston, to fill up some morass in the Milky Way. Now, this doubloon was of the purest virgin gold, raked somewhere out of the heart of gorgeous hills, whence east and west o'er golden sands the headwaters of many a Pactolus flows. And though now nailed amidst all the rustiness of iron bolts and the verdigris of copper spikes, yet untouchable and immaculate to any foulness, it still preserved its Quito glow. Nor, though placed amongst a ruthless crew, and every hour passed by ruthless hands, and through the livelong nights, shrouded with thick darkness which might cover any pilfering approach, nevertheless, every sunrise found the doubloon where the sunset left it last. For it was set apart and sanctified to one awe-striking end. And however wanton in their sailor ways, one and all, the mariners revered it as the white whale's talisman. Sometimes they talked it over in the weary watch by night, wondering whose it was to be at last, and wondering whether he would ever live to spend it. Now, those noble golden coins of South America are medals of the sun and tropic token pieces. Here, palms, alpacas, and volcanoes, suns, discs, and stars, ecliptics, horns of plenty, and rich banners waving, are in luxuriant profusion stamped, so that the precious gold seems almost to derive an added preciousness and enhancing glories by passing through those fancy mints, so Spanishly poetic. It is so chanced that the doubloon of the Pequod was a most wealthy example of these things. On its round border it bore the letters República del Ecuador, Quito. So this bright coin came from a country planted in the middle of the world and beneath the great equator, and named after it, and it had been cast midway up the Andes, in the unwaning climb that knows no autumn. Zoned by those letters, you saw the likeness of 3 Andes summits, from one aflame, a tower on another, on the third a crowing cock, while arching over all was a segment of the partition zodiac, the signs all marked with their usual cabalistics, and the keystone sun centering the equinoctial point. That's a new one. That's a word I don't know. And the keystone sun entering the equinoctial point at Libra. Before this equatorial coin, Ahab, not unobserved by others, was now pausing. There's something ever egotistical in mountain tops and towers, and all other grand and lofty things. Look here, 3 peaks as proud as Lucifer. The firm tower, that is Ahab. The volcano, that is Ahab. The courageous, the undaunted, the victorious fowl, that too is Ahab. All are Ahab, and this round gold is but the image of the rounder globe, which, like a magician's glass, to each and every man in turn but mirrors back his own mysterious self. Great pains, small gains, for those who ask the world to solve them. It cannot solve itself. Methinks now this coined sun wears a ruddy face, but see, he enters the sign of storms, the equinox, and but 6 months before he wheeled out of a former equinox at Aries, from storm to storm. So be it then. Born in throes, 'tis fit that man should live in pains and die in pangs. So be it then. Here's stout stuff for woe to work on. So be it then. This is kind of a long chapter, so I'm going to take a break real quick. Apologies for not knowing equinoctial. Thanks to MJ Alpaca for suggesting from the Oxford Dictionary that apparently it might mean happening at or near the time of an equinox, as in equinoctial gales. That's a really good word. Thank you so much, MJ, for elucidating that. Also, we had a tip that rolled in from Severian Wolf on Twitch. Thank you very much, Severian Wolf. You are the first tipper of the entire stream. That gets us 15 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Severian Wolf says, I'd like to subscribe to Whale Facts. Love your show. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and post that tipping link. Also, sorry I'm yawning. I did not expect that. I wasn't yawning before I started. I don't know. It's just been kind of a weird, exhausting day. We spent a lot of time out sledding and throwing snowballs and stuff earlier, and my body is... I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm definitely feeling it. Hey, Riggs Diggs, we are on chapter 99. I think the fluke chapter was earlier, but there might be another fluke chapter later. Okay. Also, for anybody just joining us, we are currently trying to grow sugarcane here. Actually, that third row might be ready to harvest. Let's go ahead and start that harvest before we resume the reading. Okay. Bum 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 bada bada bum 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 bada. We need all the paper we can get for the HermitCraft TCG cards. Yeah, that third one is definitely ready to be harvested. So we're gonna go out this way here. And we are gonna send that flying machine flying. So I did warn you guys that this is kind of a weird chapter because it starts with Ahab looking at the coin, and then it changes voices frequently to other people looking at Ahab looking at the coin, and then it changes to other people looking at the people looking at Ahab looking at the coin. And the thing is that the paragraphs don't make it clear who's speaking at the beginning of them. And I know I've been reading this book with different voices for different characters, but I'm going to have to kind of do my best to assume I know when it's switching voices. Some of the paragraphs don't always make that clear. So, yeah, thank you for your patience with me in terms of the voices on this chapter. This is a weird one. And we're reading Moby Dick, so it being a weird one, that really says something. But, yeah, so let's go ahead and turn on some shaders and collect some sugarcane. Okay. So I'm going to modify this, scroll it down. Okay. Oh, did I post the tipping link? I thanked our last tipper, but I didn't post the link. Okay. There we go. Welcome to Yelko. We are in the middle of reading chapter 99 of Moby Dick, the Doubloon. No fairy fingers can have pressed the gold, but the devil's claws must have left their moldings there since yesterday, murmured Starbuck to himself, leaning against the bulwarks. The old man seems to have read Belshazzar's awful writing. I never marked the coin inspectingly. He goes below. Let me read. A dark valley between three mighty heaven-abiding peaks that almost seem the Trinity in some faint earthly symbol. So in this vale of death, God girds us round, and over all our gloom, the sun of righteousness still shines, a beacon and a hope. If we bend down our eyes, the dark veil shows her moldy soil. But if we lift them, the bright sun meets our glance halfway to cheer. Yet, the great sun is no fixture, and if at midnight we would fain snatch some sweet solace from him, we gaze for him in vain. This coin speaks wisely, mildly, truly, but still sadly to me. I will quit it, lest truth shake me falsely. There's now the old mogul, soliloquized Stubbed by the Tryworks. He's been twigging it, and there goes Starbuck from the same, and both with faces which I should say might be somewhere within 9 fathoms long, and all from looking at a piece of gold, which did I have it now in Corler's hook, I'd not look at it very long ere spending it. In my poor insignificant opinion, I regard this as queer. I've seen doubloons before in my voyages. Your doubloons of old Spain, your doubloons of Peru, your doubloons of Chile, your doubloons of Bolivia, your doubloons of Popayan, with plenty of gold moideries and pistoles and joes and half-joes and quarter-joes. What then should there be in this doubloon of the equator that is so killin' wonderful? By Golconda, let me read it once. Hello! Here's signs of wonders truly. That now is what old Bowditch in his epitome calls the zodiac. At what my almanac belows me calls ditto. I'll get the almanac, and as I have heard devils can be raised with Dabble's arithmetic, I'll try my hand at raising a meaning out of these queer curvicues here with the Massachusetts calendar. Here's the book. Let's see now. Signs and wonders. And the sun. He's always among 'em. Here they are. Here they go. All alive. Aries, or the ram. Taurus, or the bull. And Jiminy. Here's Gemini himself. Or the twins. Well, the sun he wheels among 'em. Here on the coin, he's just crossing the threshold between 2 of 12 sitting rooms, all in a ring. Book, you lie there. Fact is, your books must know your places. You'll do it to give us the bare words and facts. But we come in to supply the thoughts. That's my small experience, so far as the Massachusetts calendar and Bowditch's navigator and Dabble's arithmetic go. Signs and wonders, eh? Pity. if there is nothing wonderful in signs and significant in wonders. There's a clue somewhere. Wait a bit. Oh, by Jove, I have it. Look you, doubloons, your zodiac here is the life of man in one round chapter. And now I'll read off straight out of the book. Come, almanac. To begin, there's Aries, or the ram. Lecherous dog, he begets us. Then Taurus, or the bull. He bumps us the first thing. Then Gemini, or the twins. That is virtue and vice. We try to reach virtue, and lo, comes Cancer the crab and drags us back. And here, going from virtue, Leo, a roaring lion, lies in the path, and he gives a few fierce bites and surly dabs with his paw. We escape, and hail, Virgo, the virgin. That's our first love. We marry and think to be happy, for aye, when pop comes Libra, or the scales. Happiness weighed and found wanting. And while we are very sad about that, Lord, how we suddenly jump at Scorpio, or the scorpion, as he stings us in the rear. We are curing the wound when whang came arrows all around. Sagittarius, or the archer, is amusing himself. As we pluck out the shafts, stand aside! Here's the battering ram! Capricornus, or the goat, full tilt he comes in rushing and headlong. We are tossed when Aquarius, or the water bearer, pours out his whole deluge and drowns us. And to wind up with Pisces, or the fishes, we sleep. There's a sermon now, writ in high heaven, and the sun goes through it every year, yet comes out of it alive and hearty. Jollily he, aloft there, wheels through toil and trouble. And so, alow here, does jolly stop. Oh, jolly's the word for I. Adieu, Doubloon. But stop. Here comes little King Post. Dodge round the try-works now, and let's hear what he'll have to say. There, he's before it. He'll out with something presently. So he's beginning. Welcome, No Leaf Clover LP, with a party of 7. My name is Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live from Nashville, Tennessee. We are reading Moby Dick, Chapter 99, The Doubloon, tonight. It's a particularly weird chapter of Moby Dick, which is a particularly weird book. The way I describe Moby Dick to people is it might not be science fiction, but it accurately understood and predicted the invention of the internet better than any sci-fi book I've ever read. The entire story is told, basically, the reader is, imagine you're at a party, and this guy walks up, and he's like, hey, I'm Ishmael, and all these people here are phonies, and let me tell you about the time I went on a whaling ship. And then the whole time he's trying to tell you this story, he's constantly, like, referencing Wikipedia on his phone. And he's like, oh, yeah, let me tell you, this ship didn't have a crow's nest. Now, the crow's nest is named after James Crow. Let me tell you about James Crow. And he's just going on all these tangents and stuff. And you might think, wow, Joe, I don't know. Maybe anticipating the invention of cell phones and Wikipedia is one thing. But is this Herman Melville guy really predicting the future? There's an entire chapter where he ranks the whales, and it is exactly like a forum post about ranking different versions of the Green Goblin. The whole thing is full of barbs where he's like, you know, some people, not going to name names, but like this guy, totally think that this one's better than that one, and that's wrong, and here's why. Also, we got a tip rolling in. Let's go ahead and thank Robert for tipping 5, who says, thanks for helping keep the classics alive. Thank you, Robert. That puts us now 10 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Hootie says, when did you start using shaders? I like using shaders for doing, like, farming tasks like this because it's more, like, visually meditative. Since this stream is about reading a book while we harvest a bunch of sugarcane, having a little bit of extra eye candy isn't a bad thing. I find shaders really distracting indoors, if not unusable indoors, But for this sort of thing, they're perfect. You won't believe which rail was ranked first. Exactly. So, yeah. It's a whole thing. This novel is just absolutely off the wall. So thank you, No Leaf Clover, for rating. Normally my streams on HermitCraft are not spent grinding basic materials while reading books. That's only a Saturday night thing. So that way anybody who's, like, actually got plans on Saturday doesn't have to feel bad about missing the stream. Because I'm just doing the foundational work that I need to do for the week ahead. And they can always catch the VOD or read Moby Dick on their own if they want to catch up. So, yeah. That is what we are doing. So this is a weird chapter because it's called the Doubloon, and it's told from the point of view, or it's basically a series of monologues by different people. Captain Ahab went and looked at the doubloon that is the prize for whoever spots the white whale first. And a doubloon is worth $16 at the time, which in the 1850s is a stupid amount of money. An ounce of gold's value has been pretty consistent in terms of inflation. How many ounces of gold in an Ecuadorian doubloon? Okay, so Wikipedia Moby Dick coin. There's an entire chapter. So the coin that he's actually referencing here is, oh my gosh, this is, so he's referencing a specific coin in this. So here, we're going to look at Wikipedia real quick. The Ecuadorian 8 escudos doubloon, minted between 1838 and 1843, is 1 ounce of gold. It was a $16 piece at the time. How much is 1 ounce of gold today? $2,685. So this is a $2,700 bonus. This is a $2,700 bonus to whoever spots the whale. And a lot of these guys are basically making the equivalent of barely minimum wage. You know, they got their room and board on the ship paid for. So, everybody wants to be the sailor who spots Moby Dick. Right? So, anyway. If anybody would like to send me $2,700, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Quarterly taxes are due on the 15th, and any help would be appreciated. Okay. So, this chapter starts by describing the doubloon. Then it describes how Ahab perceives the doubloon. Then how the first mate Starbuck perceives the doubloon. Then how the second mate Stubb perceives the doubloon. Now we're about to hear how the third mate Flask sees the doubloon. I haven't practiced my Flask voice in a while. It's a little bit more like, "Oh, hello, sir. So Flask is supposed to be... It should be a little bit more refined, I think. So Flask is supposed to be a relatively, well, no, he's not British. He's a Quaker. But I've been kind of giving him a, slightly... Yeah, so the officers on the ship are all Quakers from Nantucket. Because the ship is owned by Quakers. Yeah. Let me see. So I probably don't want that. I want to do a higher pitched voice for Flask, though, because he's supposed to be, you know, a relatively young person from, like, a well-connected family. That's how we got the officer status, but he's not. Where's Nantucket? It's on the east coast of the United States. It's an island off the east coast of the United States, where whaling was everything. Rachel Kubaki says, I normally watch on Twitch. I'm confused here. You know, it's the same stream. I just put it on multiple services so people can watch wherever they want to. Okay. So let me get in the Flask headspace. Or voice space. Oh boy. As soon as I do... Okay, we're going to let this one keep growing for a minute. and get the paper over here. Hey, 8-Star Ghoul, we are doing... we are gathering materials for the TCG booster packs while AFKing at this farm. And once it's grown a little bit more, we're going to take the cart through. Okay. So I want to do a higher pitch, but not necessarily British voice for Flask. So, I see nothing here but a round thing made of gold, and whoever raises a certain whale, this round thing belongs to him. So what's all this staring been about? Is it worth $16? Yeah, that's true. And at 2 cents the cigar, that's 960 cigars. I won't smoke dirty pipes like Stubb, but I do like cigars. And he has 960 of them. So here goes Flask aloft to spy 'em out. And then it goes back to Stubb, it looks like. Shall I call that wise or foolish? Now, if it be really wise, it has a foolish look to it. But if it be really foolish, then it has a sort of a wise-ish look to it. But avast, here comes our old Manxman, the old hearse driver. He must have been back before he took to the seas. He luffs up before the doubloon, hello, and goes round the other side of the mast. Why, there's a horseshoe nailed on that side. And now he's back again. What does that mean? Hark! He's muttering. Voice like an old worn-out coffee mill. Prick ears and listen. Now, I don't know how to do a voice like an old ground-up coffee mill or worn-up coffee mill or all that, whatever. So we're gonna, and I was already doing a kind of gravelly voice for Stubbs. So our coffee mill has a high-pitched whine to it because it's fast, it's motorized, it's electric, boogie woogie woogie. But back in the 1850s, they didn't have electric coffee mills, so I'm assuming it's like, so when I think hearse, let's go with like something between Herman Munster and Lurch from the Addams Family. If the white whale be raised, it must be in a month and a day, when the sun stands in some one of these signs. I've studied signs and know their marks. They were taught to me 20 years ago by the old witch in Copenhagen. Now, in what sign will the sun then be? The horseshoe sign, for there it is, right opposite the gold. And what's the horseshoe sign? The lion is the horseshoe sign, the roaring and devouring lion. Ship, old ship. My old head shakes to think of thee. There's another rendering now, but still one text. All kinds of men in one kind of world, you see. Dodge again. Here comes Queequeg, all tattooing. Looks like the signs of the Zodiac himself. What says the cannibal? As I live, he's comparing notes. Looking at his thigh bone, thinks the sun is in the thigh or in the calf or in the bowels, I suppose, as the old women talk surgeon's astronomy in the back country, and by Jove, he's found something there. In the vicinity of his eye, I think it's Sagittarius, or the Archer. No, he don't know what to make of the doubloon. He takes it for an old button off some king's trousers. But aside again, here comes that old ghost devil Fadala. Tail coiled out of sight as usual. Oakum in the toes of his pumps as usual. What does he say with that look of his? He makes a sign to the sign and bows himself. There is a sun on the coin, fire worshipper depend upon it. Oh, more and more. This way comes Pip. Poor boy. Would he had died or I, he's half horrible to me. He, too, has been watching all of these interpreters, myself included. And look, now he comes to read, with that unearthly idiot face. Stand away again and hear him. Hark! I look, you look, he looks, we look, ye look, they look. Upon my soul, he's been studying Murray's grammar, improving his mind, poor fella. But what's that he says now? Hist. I look, you look, he looks, we look, ye look, they look. Why, he's getting it by heart. Hist. Again. I look, you look, he looks, we look, ye look, they look. Well, that's funny. And I, you, and he, and we, ye, and they are all bats, and I'm a crow, especially when I stand atop of this pine tree here. Caw, 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 ain't I a crow? Where's the scarecrow? There he stands, 2 bones, stuck in a pair of old trousers, and 2 more, poked into the sleeves of an old jacket. Wonder if he means me. Complimentary. Poor lad! I could go hang myself. Anyway, for the present, I'll quit Pip's vicinity. I can stand the rest, for they have plain wits, but he's too crazy witty for my sanity. So I'll leave him muttering. Here's the ship's navel, this doubloon here, and they are all on fire to unscrew it, but unscrew your navel, and what's the consequence? Then again, if it stays here, that is ugly too, for when aught's nailed to the mast, it's a sign that things grow desperate. Hold they have! The white whale, he'll nail ye! This is a pine tree. My father in old Tolland country cut down a pine tree once and found a silver ring grown over it, some old wedding ring. How did it get there? So they'll say in the resurrection when they come to fish up the old mast and find a doubloon lodged in it with bedded oysters for the shaggy bark. Oh, the gold, the precious, precious gold. The green miser'll hoard ye soon. God goes among the world's blackberrying. Cook, oh, cook, cook and cook us. Jenny, hey, 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 Jenny, 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 and get your hoe cake done. And that concludes chapter 99, The Doubloon of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us during that. We are going to move on to chapter 100 in a little bit, but before we do, I like to open up discussion to what people think about that chapter. Anybody have anything that jumped out at them? And while I wait for y'all to have a chance to type, I'm going to go ahead and I'm also going to say welcome to Paul Wells, and thank you for the kind words about the Imp and Skiz podcast. If you weren't familiar with my work before, you came in the middle of a Moby Dick reading stream. We are harvesting sugarcane to make the TCG cards for Season 10. Ooh. And so that is a good AFK stream or reading stream task. We also have a tip that just rolled in from Yazzie Wolf. Let me go ahead and read that message from Yazzie, who says, "Thanks for another wonderful reading stream, Joe! Yazzie Wolf!" Thank you very much to Yazzie for that. That gets us another 20 on the abacus here, putting us 10 past our first face camera expansion milestone. Please direct your attention down to slot 9, where I'm putting the hot in the hot bar, so I can say, howdy, y'all. Grow Hills here, expanding as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. Dee-da-dee-da-dee, dee-da-dee-da-dee-dee-dee. Jubali says, I missed the first 99 chapters, but the voice actors are doing a great job. Honestly, you kind of don't really need to know what's going on in this book. This book is bonkers, and it's enough in the kind of general culture that you kind of already know, okay, Captain Ahab lost his leg to the white whale and he's hunting it. And when a madman captains a ship, things go sideways. Everything happening is like, it's bonkers. And like they're constantly meeting up with other ships, and there's entire chapters that are just rumors that they heard from other ships about stuff that happened in other ships. And those other ship stories are also completely bonkers, and they just kind of reinforce the idea that what Ahab is doing, while it is completely bonkers, is also kind of well within the realm of expected ship experiences. Because these other ships have it even worse in some cases. There's one ship that was taken over by a cult leader, who brought a bunch of laudanum on board and was drugging the sailors with laudanum to follow him. There's other ships with all sorts of crazy mutiny stories. So this next chapter is going to be about the Pequod meeting yet another ship, the Samuel. I'm not sure how they pronounce this in England. The Samuel Enderby of London. And so Intense Acid said, this is my first time watching you on stream. Just so you know, Intense Acid, I appreciate you being here. Saturday night streams, I do really grindy stuff in Minecraft while reading novels out loud. Most of my other streams are not like this. Most of my streams are me actively recording stuff for HermitCraft. I'm playing on the HermitCraft server right now. I'm gathering materials that I need to make my episode. So basically, every Saturday night, I try to do a bunch of grindy stuff. So that way I have all the materials and things I need for the stuff I'm going to record throughout the week, which is a lot more high energy, a lot more interactions. Because there's usually not any other hermits on Saturday night. If I can get all my, like, chores done now, I can go have fun and do Hungry Hermits and, you know, goof off and record stuff with Etho and stuff like that on the other days. So this is not a typical stream. This is an atypical stream. But I also know, you know, a lot of viewers, they feel like, oh man, I don't want to miss a stream. It's like, well, hey, it's Saturday night. Go out with your friends and have fun. Worst case, you can go read Moby Dick on your own. So yeah, we're all hanging out. We're having a good time. But yeah, we got a few notes here. People talking about what they read or what they thought about this in the Twitch chat. I do have 3 chats. If you're new to the streams, you might not know. I've got 3 chats. One on Discord for my Patreon patrons, one on Twitch, and one on YouTube. So welcome, Kai Mackin. Glad to have you. So in the Twitch chat, let's see. Mushroom Noodle says, I didn't know astrology was around during the time of writing Moby Dick, so that's knowledge gained. Yeah, astrology goes back quite a ways. The names of the signs and things like that have been there for quite a while. So, Kai for M says, this chapter would make a good song in a musical. It almost feels like a farce, how, like, Stubb is narrating everything. Jubali says, is piracy a current part of this world? They're not really worried about pirates themselves, because their ship is pretty well manned, and it's carrying whale oil rather than, like, money. Like, pirates would rather, like, usually capture ships that have things. So, like, let's say that a ship is delivering goods to the New World, and then picking up gold from South America or Central America to take back to England, right? Pirates generally wanted to capture ships that had actual, like, just straight up gold on them. That would be your best case scenario. If not, you want to capture a ship that would make a good pirate ship. And a whaling vessel isn't really designed to be a good pirate ship. You know what I mean? It's got all sorts of specialty equipment. You know, like they've got actual, like, giant boilers and stuff that are made of stone and metal. There's a lot of things that would slow this ship down. You wouldn't necessarily want one of these as a pirate ship. But yeah. Okay. So let me see if... let's go ahead and post the tipping link. So yeah, Yazi Wolf left us 10 away from the next Phase Camera expansion milestone. And let me see if any others have rolled in. Doesn't look like they have yet, but that's okay. We're going to be here for a little while. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. So the next chapter, chapter 100, is entitled Leg and Arm. The Pequod of Nantucket meets the Samuel Enderby of London. And just to give you some context here, every time they meet a ship, because Captain Ahab is obsessed with finding and killing the white whale, the first thing he always asks is if they've seen the white whale. It's almost like if instead of answering my phone with... Here, let me get my phone out. Instead of answering my phone with Joe Hills, Master of Mysticism, it'd be like me saying, Joe Hills, have you seen the white whale? Like, it's like, basically, this immediate inquiry establishes, once again, Ahab's monomania. He is the guy who is going to find the white whale. You know? So, here we go. Let's jump into chapter 100. Leg and Arm. Ship ahoy! Hast thou seen the white whale? So cried Ahab, once more hailing a ship showing English colors bearing down under the stern. Trumpet to mouth, the old man was standing in his hoisted quarter-boat, his ivory leg plainly revealed to the stranger captain, who was carelessly reclining in his own boat's bow. He was a darkly tanned, burly, good-natured, fine-looking man of 60 or thereabouts, dressed in a spacious roundabout that hung round him in festoons of blue pilot cloth, and one empty arm of this jacket streamed behind him, like the broidered arm of a hussar's surcoat. Hast seen the white whale? See you this? And withdrawing it from the folds that had hidden it, he held up a white arm of sperm whale bone, terminating in a wooden head, like a mallet. Man my boat! Cried Ahab impetuously, and tossing about the oars near him. Stand by to lower! In less than a minute, without quitting his little craft, he and his crew were dropped to the water, and were soon alongside of the stranger. But here a curious difficulty presented itself. In the excitement of the moment, Ahab had forgotten that since the loss of his leg, he had never once stepped on board of any vessel at sea but his own, and then it was always by ingenious and very handy mechanical contrivance peculiar to the Pequod, and a thing not to be rigged and shipped in any other vessel at a moment's warning. Now, it is not so very easy matter. It is no so very easy matter for anybody, except those who are almost hourly used to it, like whalemen, to clamber up a ship's side from a boat on the open sea. For the great swells now lift the boat high up above toward the bulwarks, and then instantaneously drop it halfway down to the keelson. So, deprived of one leg, and the strange ship, of course, being altogether unsupplied with the kindly invention, Ahab now found himself abjectly reduced to a clumsy landsman again, hopelessly eyeing the uncertain, changeful height he could barely hope to attain. It has been hinted, perhaps, that every little untoward circumstance that befell him, and which indirectly sprang from his luckless mishap, almost invariably irritated or exasperated Ahab, and in this present instance, all this was heightened by the sight of the two officers of the strange ship leaning over one side, by the perpendicular ladder of nailed cleats there, and swinging toward him a pair of tastefully ornamented man-ropes, for at first they did not seem to bethink them that a one-legged man must be too much of a cripple to use their sea banisters. But this awkwardness only lasted a minute, because the strange captain, observing at a glance how affairs stood, cried out, I see! Avast even there! Jump, boys, and swing out over the cutting tackle. As good luck would have it, they had a whale alongside a day or two previous, and the great tackles were still aloft, and the massive curved blubber hook, now clean and dry, was still attached to the end. This was quickly lowered to Ahab, who, at once comprehending it all, slid his solitary thigh into the curve of the hook. It was like sitting in the fluke of an anchor, or the crotch of an apple tree, and then, giving the word, held himself fast, and at the same time also helped to hoist his own weight by pulling hand over hand upon one of the running parts of the tackle. Soon he was carefully swung inside the high bulwarks and gently landed upon the capstan head. With his ivory arm frankly thrust forth in welcome, the other captain advanced, and Ahab, putting out his ivory leg and crossing the ivory arm, like two swordfish blades, cried out in his walrus way, "Aye, aye, hearty, let us shake bones together, an arm and a leg, an arm that can never shrink, do you see, and a leg that can never run. Where didst thou see the white whale? How long ago?" "The white whale," said the Englishman, pointing his ivory arm toward the east, and taking a rueful sight along it, as if it had been a telescope. "There I saw him, on the line, last season." "And he took that arm off, did he?" asked Ahab, now sliding down the capstan and resting on the Englishman's shoulder as he did so. "Aye, he was the cause of it at least. And that leg too?" "Spin me the yarn," said Ahab. "How was it?" "It was the first time in my life that I ever crossed the line," began the Englishman. "I was ignorant of the white whale at that time. Well, one day we lowered for a pod of 4 or 5 whales, and my boat fastened to one of them. A regular circus horse he was, too, that went milling and milling round so that my boat's crew could only trim dish by sitting all their sterns on the outer gunwale. Presently, up breaches from the bottom of the sea a bouncing great whale, with a milky white head and hump, all crow's feet and wrinkles. "It was he! It was he!" cried Ahab, suddenly letting out his suspended breath. "And harpoons sticking in near his starboard fin." They were mine! My irons!" cried Ahab, exultingly. "But on!" "Give me a chance, then," said the Englishman good-humoredly. "Well, this old great-grandfather, with the white head and hump, runs all afoam into the pod, and goes to snapping furiously at my fast line. "Ah, I see. Want to part it. Free the fast fish. An old trick. I know him." "How it was, exactly," continued the one-armed commander, "I do not know, but in biting the line, it got foul of his teeth, caught there somehow, but we didn't know it then, so that when we afterwards pulled on the line, bounce we came, plump onto his hump, instead of the other whales, that went off to windward, all fluking. Seeing how matters stood, and what a noble, great whale it was, the noblest and biggest I ever saw, sir, in my life, I resolved to capture him, spite of the boiling rage he seemed to be in, and thinking that the haphazard line would get loose, or the tooth it was tangled in might draw, for I have a devil of a boat's crew to pull on a wild line. Seeing all this, I say, I jumped into my first mate's boat, Mr. Mounttop's here. By the way, Captain Mounttop, the captain. As I was saying, I jumped into Mounttop's boat, which, you see, was gunwale and gunwale with mine, then, and snatching the first harpoon, let this old great-grandfather have it. But, Lord, look you, sir, Heart and soul alive, man. The next instant, in a jiff, I was blind as a bat, both eyes out, all befogged and bedecked with black foam, the whale's tail looming straight up out of it, perpendicular in the air like a marble steeple. No use sterning at all, then, but as I was groping at midday, with a blinding sun, all crown jewels, as I was groping, I say, after the second iron to toss it overboard, down comes a tail like a Lima tower, cutting my boat in two, leaving each half in splinters, and flukes first, the whale hump backed through the wreck, as though it was all chips. We all struck out. To escape his terrible flailings, I seized hold of my harpoon pole sticking in him, and for a moment clung to that like a suckling fish. But a combing sea dashed me off, and at the same instant the fish, taking one good dart forwards, went down like a flash, and the barb of that cursed second iron towing along near me caught me here, clapping his hand just below the shoulder. Yes, caught me just here, and bore me down to hell's flames, I was thinking, when all of a sudden, thank the good God, the barb ripped its way along the flesh, clear along the whole length of my arm, came out nigh my wrist, and up I floated. And that, gentleman, will tell you the rest. By the way, Captain, Dr. Bunger, ship's surgeon. Bunger, my lad, the captain. Now, Bunger boy, spin your part of the yarn. The professional gentleman thus familiarly pointed out had been all this time standing near them, with nothing specific visible to denote his gentlemanly rank on board. His face was an exceedingly round but sober one. He was dressed in a faded blue woolen frock or shirt, patched trousers, and had thus far been dividing his attention between a marlin spike he held in one hand and a pillbox held in the other, occasionally casting a critical glance at the ivory limbs of the two crippled captains. But at his superior's introduction of him to Ahab, he politely bowed, and straightway went on to do his captain's bidding. "It was a shocking bad wound," began the whale surgeon, "and taking my advice, Captain Boomer here stood our old Sammy." "Samuel Enderby is the name of my ship," interrupted the one-armed captain, addressing Ahab. "Go on, boy." "Stood our old Sammy off to the northward to get it out of the blazing hot weather there on the line, but it was no use. I did all I could, sat up with him nights, was very severe with him in the matter of diet." "Oh, very severe," chimed in the patient himself, then suddenly altering his voice. Drinking hot rum toddies with me every night, till he couldn't see to put on the bandages, and sending me to bed half seas over about 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, ye stars, he sat up with me indeed, and was very severe in my diet. Huh, a great watcher, and very dietetically severe is Dr. Bunger. Bunger, you dog, laugh out, why don't ye? You know you're a precious jolly rascal. But heave ahead, boy. I'd rather be killed by you than kept alive by any other man. "My captain, you must hear this perceived, respected sir," said the imperturbable, godly-looking Bunger, slightly bowing to Ahab, "is apt to be facetious at times. He spins us many clever things of that sort. But I may as well say, en passant, as the French remark, that I say myself, that is to say, Jack Bunger, late of the reverend clergy, am a strict total abstinence man. I never drink." "Water!" cried the captain. "He never drinks. It's sort of fits to him. Fresh water throws him into the hydrophobia. But go on with the arm story. Ah, yes, I may as well. I was about observing, sir, before Captain Boomer's facetious interruption, that spite of my best and severest endeavors, the wound kept getting worse and worse. The truth was, sir, it was an ugly, gaping wound, as surgeon ever saw, more than 2 feet and several inches long. I measured it with the lead line. In short, it grew black. I knew what that threatened, and off it came. But I had no hand in shipping that ivory arm there. That thing is against all rule. Pointing at it with the marlin spike. That is the captain's work, not mine. He ordered to the carpenter to make it. He had that little club hammer there put to the end to knock someone's brains out with, I suppose, as he tried mine once. He flies into diabolical passions sometimes. Do you see this dent, sir? Removing his hat and brushing aside his hair, and exposing a bowl-like cavity in his skull, which bore not the slightest scarry trace, or any token of ever having been a wound. Well, the captain will tell you how that came here. He knows. No, I don't, said the captain. But his mother did. He was born with it. Oh, you solemn rogue! You bunger! Was there ever such another bunger in all the weary, watery world? Bunger, when you die, you ought to die in a pickle, you dog. You should be preserved to the future ages, you rascal. What became of the white whale? Now cried Ahab, who thus far had been impatiently listening to this byplay between the two Englishmen. Oh, cried the one-armed captain. Oh, yes. Well, after he sounded, we didn't see him again for some time. In fact, as I before hinted, I didn't then know what whale it was had served me such a trick, till sometimes afterward, when coming back to the line, we heard about Moby Dick, as some call him. And then I knew it was he. Didst thou cross his wake again? Twice. But could not fasten? Didn't want to try to. Ain't one limb enough. What should I do without this other arm? And I'm thinking, Moby Dick doesn't bite so much as he swallows. Well, then, interrupted Bunger. Give him your left arm for bait to get the right. Do you know, gentlemen, very gravely and mathematically bowing to each captain in succession, do you know, gentlemen, that the digestive organs of the whale are so inscrutably constructed by divine providence that it is quite impossible for him to completely digest even a man's arm, and he knows it too, so that what you take for the white whale's malice is only his awkwardness, for he never means to swallow a single limb. He only thinks to terrify by feints. But sometimes he is like the old juggling fellow, formerly a patient of mine in Ceylon, that making believe swallow jackknives once upon a time let one drop into him in good earnest, and there it stayed for a 12-month or more, when I gave him an emetic, and he heaved it up in small tacks, do you see. No possible way for him to digest that jackknife and fully incorporate it into his general bodily system. Yes, Captain Boomer, if you are quick enough about it, and you have a mind to pawn one arm for the sake of the privilege of giving decent burial to the other, why, in that case, the arm is yours. Only let the whale have another chance at you shortly. That's all. No, thank ye, Bunger, said the English captain. "He's welcome to the arm he has, since I can't help it, and didn't know him then. But not to another one. No more white whales for me. I've lowered it for him once, and that has satisfied me. There would be great glory in killing him, I know that, and there is a shipload of precious sperm in him. But, hark ye, he's best left alone. Don't you think so, Captain?" Glancing at the ivory leg. "He is, but he will still be hunted for all that. What is best left alone, that accursed thing, is not always what least allures. He's all a magnet. How long since thou saw'st him last? Which way heading?"
"Bless my soul and curse the foul fiends!"
cried Bunger, stoopingly walking round Ahab, and like a dog strangely snuffling.
"This man's blood! Bring the thermometer! It's at its boiling point! His pulse makes all these planks beat. Sir!"
Taking a lancet from his pocket and drawing near to Ahab's arm.
"Avast!"
roared Ahab, dashing him against the bulwarks. "Man the boat! Which way heading?"
"Good God!"
cried the English captain, to whom the question was put.
"What's the matter? He was heading east, I think. Is your captain crazy?"
Whispering to Fedallah. But Fedallah, putting a finger on his lip, slid over the bulwarks to take the boat's steering oar, and Ahab, swinging the cutting tackle toward him, commanded the ship's sailors to stand by to lower. In a moment, he was standing in the boat's stern, and the Manila men were springing to their oars. In vain the English captain hailed him. With back to the stranger's ship, and face set like a flint to his own, Ahab stood upright till alongside of the Pequod. And that concludes Chapter 100 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Rachel Kobaki in the YouTube chat says, "Oh, wow, that wound sounds awful." Yeah, that's not a good wound. You don't want one of those. Welcome, Chris Kavanaugh. We are having a pretty great night. We are currently doing some sugarcane harvesting in Minecraft and reading Moby Dick. Hope you're having a fantastic night, too. Paul Wells, if you're still here, have a great night. Thanks for stopping by. Hello, Mr. Krantz. Araya Thallium says, "That wasn't unhinged at all." Oratala says, "Bunger Boy is a fantastic name." I know, right? Ricky says, "You have a fantastic storytelling." Thank you. I try. Amber the Witch says, "I've never read Moby Dick." Don't worry, we're doing it now. Centauratron says, "Do you think Moby Dick tells these stories to his whale friends?" Oh my god. You know what we haven't seen? You know, there was Wicked, where they turn Alphaba into the good guy in The Wizard of Oz. And then there was, what's that thing where the vizier in Aladdin is the good guy? Twisted. There's all these stories where it's like, oh no, what if the bad guy was really right all along? You know, I haven't seen that yet for Moby Dick. We have yet to see, I don't know. So the other one was called Wicked and Twisted, so maybe this would be Mobied or Dicked. I don't know. But yeah, we haven't seen the Moby Dick telling of how Ahab's actually the bad guy. But yeah. Just as a side note, that's coming soon, I'm sure. Ivy Love says, "It's very relaxing, thank you." Dwagon Snare says, "Wah ha 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 wah 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 wah." Thank you, Dwagon Snare, for showing up. Okay, Centauratron has hashtag Moby Dick did nothing wrong. Like, I mean, the thing is, though, Moby Dick is kind of a superhero. Like, okay, so let's take this story that the English guy from the Samuel Enderby told, right? So the Samuel Enderby, they've got their harpoon in a whale that they haven't killed yet, and they've pulled their boat up alongside it so they can try to kill it. And Moby Dick comes in and bites through, or as they're trying to pull up alongside this whale, Moby Dick flies out from the bottom of the ocean and tries to bite through the line, rescuing this whale that goes and swims off. And then they try to kill Moby Dick, and he uses his superpowers to blind them. And their own weapons, which are two harpoons that are on the same line tied together, they hit Moby Dick with one of the harpoons, and the guy's own second harpoon slashes down his whole arm. Like, this is a superhero story, right? Like, Moby Dick is just rolling in, rescuing whales that are being decimated by the whaling industry. And sending cautionary, he's making sure that these guys barely live to tell the tale. To warn, like, hey, boys, don't fish these seas. I could imagine there's a strong case for Moby Dick being a folk hero among whales. Uh-oh. Oh, I hit shift. I shouldn't have done that. That's always the worst thing to hit. Uh-oh. Vigilante justice. Vigilante justice. Moby Dick is specifically a sperm whale, yes. This is a book about how sperm whales are the best whales. So, of course, Moby Dick being the best whale is the best kind of whale. Moby Dick or the white whale is like Clark Kent or Superman. This is still Season 10 of HermitCraft. We are gathering sugarcane to make TCG cards for the Season 10 HermitCraft TCG release. Okay. If you guys are enjoying this reading, just as a reminder, this is a viewer-supported stream. We are $10 away from the next face camera expansion milestone, according to my abacus here. And tips are welcome via paypal.me/showhills and YouTube Super Chat. Dutchman says, I haven't watched much HermitCraft lately. Last time I saw you, you were clearing mountains. I still have more mountains to clear, but I'm taking a break to help out Vintage Beef. Because with his expanded family situation, he didn't have time to launch HermitCraft TCG Season 10 himself, and so I'm helping coordinate a bunch of hermits to make that happen. Lots of people are chipping in. One of my parts is that I'm doing myself, besides just coordinating, is also gathering sugarcane to make paper for the maps. I don't choose the next novel before I finish the current novel, so I have no idea what I'm reading next. Okay. Bum, bum, bum. Dun, 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 dun. So we're gonna wait. So we're gonna do this neighboring channel here doesn't actually get the pass by for the thing. We're not gonna start chapter 100 quite. Chapter 101 quite yet. Have I read Moby Dick before? I read it once about 8 years ago. And so I haven't read it for a long time. And so I remembered certain things about it, but any good story you benefit from taking a few years off and rereading it. I think. So that's what I'm doing. But I'm not, like, pre-reading the chapters. I'm kind of skimming ahead sometimes, but, like, I'm kind of reading this along with you. I'm not rehearsing these. Yazzie Wolf says, last night I dreamed you read a chapter from the middle of Frankenstein, but it was set on the ship from Moby Dick, and I woke up so confused. No. Well, hopefully tonight you'll wake up completely not confused. What's the opposite of confused? Informed. You'll wake up informed tonight, Yazzie Wolf. So, I need to update the what we're reading link to reflect the new chapter, which is chapter 101, the Decanter. So let's go ahead and get on that. What we're reading. Okay. Okay. More certain, yes. Certain. Thank you, Simply Lost. Pin this message until the end of the stream. Place pin message on there. Kindle says, speaking of TCG, I learned Beef's card distribution plans were not developed with Redstone in mind. Yeah, I saw that machine you built. That was big. Okay, so I'm out of my drink, but we can't play music right now or we'll get a copyright strike even if I have the rights to the music. So we're just going to put up the hydration break sign, and I am going to be right back as quick as I can. And then we're going to read chapter 101, the Decanter. BRB. Also, if you want to tip while I'm gone, that would be deeply appreciated. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/showhills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay, BRB, for real. Okay, I am back. Welcome back, everybody. Gonna take off this hydration break sign. Woo! Okay, so we've actually already gathered all of the sugarcane that was on this track here, so we just need to break that. And take that back here. So now we're going to get into some of the Wikipedia-ness of this book. The next chapter, the Decanter. I haven't read it in advance. I haven't rehearsed it. But I do know from looking at it that it apparently is something to do with... Here, let me talk about... Wait, hold on. Was that one messed up? Oh, no, those are working. Okay, cool. Okay, now I'm going to talk about something about ships from England for a whole chapter. That's just how this guy writes. That's just what he does. And we're fine with it. And that's the thing. That's what we're doing. Okay. So we're going to grab the remaining sugarcane that fell in the hopper over here, as well as on the other side, and move those into the paper makers as well. It's not a trivial amount. It does add up. So we're going to grab these, toss those into the paper making machine. Okay. And then bop, bop, bop. Cool. So we have everything pinned. Doesn't seem like anybody had any last minute things to talk about from chapter 100, so I think we're ready to move on. Okay. I see Centauratron's typing. Centauratron says, did you like that chapter learning more about the whale itself? Well, too bad. More ship information. Well, yeah, I mean, we heard a story about Moby Dick. I don't know that we learned... Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did learn, though, that Moby Dick is a hero. So, yeah, we'll come back to that. Chapter 101, 101, the Decanter. Ere the English ship fades from sight, let it be set down here that she hailed from London, and was named after the late Samuel Enderby, merchant of that city, the original of the famous whaling house of Enderby and Sons, a house which, in my poor whaleman's opinion, comes not far behind the united royal houses of the Tudors and Bourbons in point of real historical interest. How long prior to the year of our Lord 1775 this great whaling house was in existence? My numerous fish documents do not make plain, but in that year, 1775, it fitted out the first English ships that ever regularly hunted the sperm whale, though for some score of years previous, ever since 1726, our valiant Coffins and Macy's of Nantucket and the Vineyard had in large fleets pursued that Leviathan, but only in the North and South Atlantic, not elsewhere. Be it distinctly recorded here that the Nantucketers were the first among mankind to harpoon with civilized steel the great sperm whale, and that for half a century they were the only people of the whole globe who so harpooned him. In 1778, a fine ship, the Amelia, fitted out for that express purpose, and at sole charge of the vigorous Enderbys, boldly rounded Cape Horn, and was the first among nations to lower a whaleboat of any sort in the great South Sea. The voyage was a skillful and lucky one, and returning to her berth with her hold full of the precious sperm, the Amelia's example was soon followed by other ships, English and American, and thus the vast sperm whale grounds of the Pacific were thrown open. But not content with this good deed, the indefatigable house again bestirred itself. Samuel and his sons, how many their mother only knows, and under their immediate auspices, and partly, I think, at their expense, the British government was induced to send the sloop of war Rattler on a whaling voyage of discovery into the South Sea, commanded by a naval post captain. The Rattler made a rattling voyage of it, and did some service. How much does not appear, but this is not all. In 1819, the same house fitted out a discovery whale ship of their own to go on a tasting cruise to the remote waters of Japan. That ship, well called the Siren, made a noble experimental cruise, and it was thus that the great Japanese whaling ground first became generally known. The Siren in this famous voyage was commanded by a Captain Coffin, a Nantucketer. Woo! All honor to the Enderbys, therefore, whose house I think exists to the present day, though doubtless the original Samuel must have long ago slipped his cable for the great South Sea of the other world. The ship named after him was worthy of the honor, being a very fast sailor and a noble craft in every way. I boarded her once at midnight, somewhere off the Patagonian coast, and drank good flip down in the forecastle. It was a fine gam we had, and they were all trumps, every soul on board. A short life to them, and a jolly death. And that fine gam I had. Long. Very long. After old Ahab touched her planks with his ivory heel. It minds me of the noble, solid Saxon hospitality of that ship, and may my parson forget me, and the devil remember me if I ever lose sight of it. Flip. Did I say we had flip? Yes. And we flipped it at the rate of 10 gallons the hour. And when the squalls came, it's squally out there by the Patagonias. Whew. All hands, visitors and all, were called to reef topsails. We were so top-heavy that we had to swing each other aloft in the bowlines. We ignorantly furled the skirts of our jackets into the sails so that we hung there, reefed fast in the howling gale, as a warning example to all drunken tars. However, the mast did not go overboard, and by we scrambled down so sober that we had to pass the flip again. Though the savage salt spray bursting down the forecastle scuttle rather too much diluted and pickled it to my taste. The beef was fine, tough, but with body in it. They said it was bull beef. Others that it was dromedary beef. I don't know for certain how that was. They had dumplings too. Small, but substantial, symmetrically globular, and indestructible dumplings. I fancied that you could feel them and roll them about in you after they were swallowed. If you stooped over too far forward, you risked pitching them out of you like billiard balls. The bread, but that couldn't be helped. Besides, it was an anti-scorbutic. In short, the bread contained the only fresh fare they had. But the forecastle was not very light, and it was very easy to step over into a dark corner when you ate it. But all in all, taking her from truck to helm, considering the dimensions of the cook's boilers, including his own live parchment boilers fore and aft, I say, the Samuel Enderby was a jolly ship, of good fare and plenty, fine flip, and strong, crack fellows all, and capital from boot heels to hat band. But why was it, think ye, that the Samuel Enderby and some other English whalers I know of, not all though, were such famous hospitable ships that passed round the beef and the bread and the can and the joke, and were not soon weary of eating and drinking and laughing? I will tell you, the abounding good cheer of these English whalers is a matter for historical research. Nor have I been at all sparing of historical whale research when it has seemed needed. The English were preceded in the whale fishery by the Hollanders, Zealanders, and Danes, from whom they derive many terms still extant in the fishery, and, what is yet more, their fat old fashions, touching plenty to eat and drink, for, as a general thing, the English merchant ship scrimps her crew, but not so the English whaler. Hence, in the English, this thing of whaling good cheer is not normal and natural, but incidental and particular, and therefore must have some special origin, which is here pointed out and will still be further elucidated. During my researches in the Leviathanic histories, I stumbled upon an ancient Dutch volume, which, by the musty whaling smell of it, I knew must be about whalers. The title was Dan Koopman. Wherefore, I concluded that this must be the invaluable memoirs of some Amsterdam cooper in the fishery, as every whale ship must carry its cooper. I was reinforced in this opinion by seeing that it was a production of one Fitz Swackhammer. But my friend Dr. Snodhead, a very learned man, professor of Low Dutch and High German in the College of Santa Claus and St. Potts, to whom I handed the work for translation, giving him a box of sperm candles for his trouble. This same Dr. Snodhead, so soon as he spied the book, assured me that Dan Koopman did not mean the cooper, but the merchant. In short, this ancient and learned Low Dutch book treated of the commerce of Holland, and, among other subjects, contained a very interesting account of its whale fishery. And in this chapter, it was headed Smear, or Fat, that I found a long detailed list of the outfits for the larders and cellars of 180 sail of Dutch whalemen, from which list, as translated by Dr. Snodhead, I will transcribe the following. 400,000 pounds of beef, 60,000 pounds Friesland pork, 150,000 pounds of stock fish, 550,000 pounds of biscuit, 72,000 pounds of soft bread, 2,800 firkins of butter, 20,000 pounds Texel and Leyden cheese, 144 pounds cheese, probably an inferior article, 550 anchors of Geneva, 10,800 barrels of beer. Most statistical tables are parchingly dry in the reading. Not so in the present case. However, where the reader is flooded with whole pipes, barrels, quarts, and gills of good gin, and good cheer. At the time, I devoted 3 days to the studious digestion of all this beef, beer, and bread, during which many profound thoughts were incidentally suggested to me, capable of a transcendental and platonic application. And, furthermore, I compiled supplementary tables of my own, touching the probable quantity of stockfish, etc., consumed by every Low Dutch harpooner in that ancient Greenland and Spitzbergen whale fishery. In the first place, the amount of butter and Texel and Leyden cheese consumed seems amazing. I impute it, though, to their naturally unctuous natures, being rendered still more unctuous by the nature of their vocation, and especially by their pursuing the game in the frigid polar seas, on the very coasts of that Esquimaux country where the convivial natures pledge each other in bumpers of train oil. The quantity of beer, too, is very large, 10,800 barrels. Now, as these polar fisheries could only be prosecuted in the short summer of that climate, so the whole cruise of one of these Dutch whalemen, including the short voyage to and from the Spitzbergen Sea, did not exceed 3 months, say, and reckoning 30 men to each of their fleet of 180 sail, we have 5,400 Low Dutch seamen in all, and therefore, I say, we have precisely 2 barrels of beer per man for a 12 weeks allowance, exclusive of his fair proportion of that 550 anchors of gin. Now, whether these gin and beer harpooneers, so fuddled as one might fancy to have been, were the right sort of men to stand up at a boat's head and take good aim at flying whales, this would seem somewhat improbable. Yet, they did aim at them, and hit them too. But this was very far north. Be it remembered, where beer agrees well with the Constitution. Upon the equator, in our southern fishery, beer would be apt to make the harpooner sleepy at the masthead and boozy in his boat. A grievous loss might ensue to Nantucket and New Bedford. But no more. Enough has been said to show that the old Dutch whalers of 2 or 3 centuries ago were high livers, and that the English whalers have not neglected so excellent an example. For, say they, when cruising in an empty ship, if you can get nothing better out of the world, get a good dinner out of it at least. And this empties the decanter. And that concludes chapter 101, the decanter. 2 barrels of beer per sailor for 12 weeks. That's probably not that bad. Because 12 weeks is a lot of days. Okay. Let's do some math here. So 12 times 7, that's 84 days. So volume of a standard barrel in 1850. A modern drum is 55 meters, but how much would a barrel have been? Wine barrels traditionally were 31 gallons. So the beer barrel was 36 gallons. Okay. So so we have 72 gallons over the course of 84 days. So 72 divided by 84. So that's 0.85. That's 0.86. So how many pints are in a gallon? Okay, so we want convert gallons to pints. I'm pretty sure it's 16, but that might not. It might be 8. So we want volume gallon. 1 gallon to pints. 8. Okay, so that's about 7 pints a day. Which, if you're spacing them out over the course of 16 hours, you can have, I think, a whaleman in... Once again, this is people working in the Arctic. So you can't drink water because it'll freeze. They need alcohol in their... Basically, the idea is this is basically their water ration. Their water ration is about a gallon to drink a day. Yeah, I feel like 7 pints of beer a day for a fisherman who is literally out around the North Pole. Like, you burn so many calories when you're out in the cold like that. And when you're working hard. I feel like that's not insane. I feel like that sounds about right. Okay, every 2 hours you get a pint. Okay. Or maybe they give you 1 cup every hour for the 16 hours you're awake. You get 1 cup an hour. That doesn't sound wrong. Okay. What do you guys think? Bandy BC says easy. Dutchman1 says 7 pints on top of the gin. Yeah, I imagine the gin is something you get when your shift is over as a reward for finishing the shift. Charles Ham says this is probably also fairly low alcohol, small beer. Yeah, probably. Yeah, Flowers57 says alcohol was better than water since they couldn't filter the water easily and you were more likely to get sick from the water. Yeah, so that's the thing. Is this is the sort of thing. It makes sense in this context. But yeah, the Nantucket whale ships did not sail with beer. They sailed with barrels of water. Because they were from that Protestant, East Coast American kind of influence. So drinking was not something that was especially culturally a big thing. They didn't necessarily forbid it on ship, but, they weren't going to necessarily give you 7 pints a day like the Dutch sailing around the Arctic. Charles Ham says water stored in barrels for long trips would go sour long before beer. Dutchman1 says, and I'm sure Dutchman1 would know, having the username Dutchman1, says, in that time there were complete towns in Belgium and the Netherlands where everybody from child on would drink beer instead of water because it was safer. Centauratron as the comment of the night is Dan Koopman, the secret identity of Poultry Man. Alrighty, have a good night, Yazzie Wolf. Yeah, we're going to wrap up in about 12 more minutes. There's not time to start the next chapter tonight. The next chapter actually begins kind of... So sometimes these chapters are kind of clumped together. So the next few chapters are about whale physiology. So chapters 102 through 105 are about whale physiology. And Ishmael talking about how he hung out with a rich guy one time who let him look at a whale better. I did skim ahead. I didn't read ahead. I did skim ahead. Because I was trying to figure out if we wanted to try and read chapter 102 tonight. Chapter 102 is basically... I'll give you a preview. But how now, Ishmael? How is it that you, a mere oarsman in the fishery, pretend to know aught about the subterranean parts of the whale? And it's basically him being like, shut up, I know all about whales, and here's why. Let me tell you about a few times that I got to really closely examine whales. And one of these stories is about knowing a rich guy. And so I'm going to tell you how cool I am because I knew a rich person one time. So, chapters 102 through 105 are all about whale physiology. And then so that's going to be, oh no, we're not doing, I don't know if we're doing a stream next week. It's going to depend on the weather. Because I have a family commitment. I promised my daughter I'd take her somewhere to do something on Sunday of next week. And I'm not sure if we're going to have to leave the night before to get there in time. It kind of depends on how the weather is. So, yeah, So the next Moby Dick stream will definitely be those physiology readings. But I'm not sure if it's going to be... next week or not. But yeah. Red Velvet Rabbit says, get you some rich friends who let you look at whales. If you want to be a rich friend who helps me read about whales, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We're going to go ahead and call this the last call for tips because we're going to be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. Those were 3 kind of longer chapters. Yeah, Charles Ham says, nice, sounds like a fun trip. Yeah, I don't like to talk about stuff I have planned coming up in advance for operational security reasons, but I'll tell you guys about it when I get back. I'm very excited about it. But yeah, I can't say anything about it now. Other than that, we're either going on a day trip on Sunday, or we're leaving the night before. Because if the weather is bad, I don't want to risk canceling last minute. Gizmo's Game Lounge says, did you guys get snow to play in? Yeah, we did. We actually went, so yesterday we went and we walked around, because we live in a different part of Nashville than we used to. So we went and we walked around kind of all of the places that I thought might have good sledding hills to check out what would be good and what wouldn't. And so we scouted out a good sledding hill. And then today we actually went sledding and did some. We tried snowball fighting, but we weren't very good at that. So instead, we played a new game where we basically my daughter got to pretend she was a waterbender from Avatar. She's like, just throw snowballs straight at my center, and I'm gonna try and punch him out of the air. And so it was just her. So instead of like us dodging and throwing at each other, in which case we never hit each other, we were both standing in one place, but it was more like baseball, where she's like ready for it and then just boom, punching him out of the air. She was really good. But yeah, we had a really fun time sledding. Okay, we got a tip rolling in from Life who says super chat and tips 10 in the YouTube super chat. Thank you very much, Life. Here we go. Please direct your attention to the lower left because we're about to well, actually, now we're about to expand Joe. Thank you very much, Life. And then we got a tip rolling in via PayPal from Zolly, who says, thanks for making this a cool and chill place to hang out. Hey, I'm so glad. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. That gets us 17 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Yeah, I think we need to get a better sled, because our current one was, like, by the end, starting to, like, break. Like, we bought our current sled when my daughter was, like, 3, and she's 11 now. And yeah, it's like, this was a great sled for a 3-year-old, but, like, you know when the worst time to buy a new sled is, though? When there's 4 inches of snow on the ground. So we're gonna let that settle. Like, the current sled is still usable, but it won't be next year. So sometime between now and next year, I need to upgrade the sled. I think what I want to do is get a good enough sled that I could actually, like, and like one with a tow rope, so that I could actually pull Badger around places. Because Badger isn't quite as mobile as I am. But when I was a kid, my mom had this great sled. And you could put 3 kids on it, or like 2 kids and some groceries, or 1 kid and groceries. And so, because like we lived for a few years up in Pennsylvania, and we would get some really crazy storms. And since I was the oldest, I always had to walk alongside the sled. But there'd be like, just straight up like, you know, she'd be like, okay, she'd put the toddler in the sled. And then, you know, maybe have a baby carrier even in there with a blanket on it. And then just like, okay, we're going to the grocery store. It's like, if a kid can sit in a stroller, a kid can sit in a sled. But yeah, we had a really heavy-duty sled when I was a kid that you could actually use to, like, haul things and multiple people in. Now, granted, they were very small people, but I feel like, since it's, yeah, it'd be, like, Badger's wheelchair doesn't really work on snow. It'd be good to have an alternative if we needed one in a snowy situation. Hey, we got a tip rolling in from Life who says, here's your 17, Joe. Hey, thank you, Life. That gets us evenly to our next face camera expansion milestone. Here we go. It's time to expand, Joe. Thank you so much. And let's see, we got a new Patreon subscriber. So those Patreon invites are usually sent out in a batch once per day. But you know what? I'm in a good mood, and we got 5 minutes till the end of the stream. Let's go ahead and just send that invite now. So let's see. We're going to open up this, and we're going to say, howdy. I got to go ahead and write I got to generate a new custom one-off Discord invite real quick. That takes a second. But yeah, if anybody else wants to sign up for the Discord real quick, I'm I'm actively sending invites. Whatever. We just did. I've had a very active day physically, and so like I'm just like, you know what? We're riding out the end of the stream, getting stuff knocked out. But yeah, let me pull up my Discord here and see. Okay, can I create an invite here? No. So it's weird. I have to create an invite in a channel that doesn't already have an active invite. Okay, so create one, edit invite link, max number of uses, 1 use, generate a link, copy. Okay, we're going to close that. And we're going to put that inside of this greeting. And we are going to go over here and we're going to send that out. I don't trust an API to manage my Discord access for Patreon members. When they first bridged the Patreon and Discord APIs, there were a bunch of problems where people who like people whose like credit cards were temporarily rejected were kicked out of the Discord for 12 hours and stuff like that. I'm like, nobody wants to deal with that. It's just better for me to send these in, manually. Also, I like to see the names of the people that come in because it's almost always people from the Twitch and YouTube chats that I've already seen, their names or whatever. So it's like cool to see like, oh, hey, who's, hopping on to support the stream. So there you go. So yeah, and so since Charles Ham acknowledged it was them, I'll say, yeah, it was Charles Ham in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Charles. I just sent that to you via Patreon message. So welcome. Thank you so much. It's been real exciting. Is this a dead fish? I guess we'll grab that too. It's been really great. Since the Imp and Skiz podcast went out, we've had a lot more interest in the Patreon. Probably because I was talking about having a Patreon chat during their thing. But yeah, so that's been really cool. So, but yeah, folks who support the show via PayPal and Patreon are letting me make it free for everybody to enjoy. Not only financially free, but guilt-free. So if you're out there listening to this and you're like, oh man, I don't have $5 to give Joe, that's fine! Everybody else who's paying is making it so that you don't have to feel bad about that. They're at a point in their lives that's a little bit different from yours. And if you, at some point in the future, have some extra money to support the arts so that everyone can enjoy them, I hope you do it. Whether it's my show or not, we take turns helping each other out. That's part of what it is to be part of a society, part of a community, And so, yeah, thank you very much, Charles Ham, for being our latest Patreon supporter. Let's see. We got a minute left in the stream. I'm going to go start looking for who we want to raid tonight. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. It looks like NJ Coffee Junkie, who's going to be a guest on my stream on Monday, is playing Hades right now. I haven't played Hades, but I've heard good things. NJ is my project manager and will be joining me on my 8:30 Central stream on Monday night to talk about all of the things that I need to do to make the next 3 months successful. Every 3 months, we have a quarterly public planning stream where we talk about all sorts of ideas and stuff, and it's kind of a loose brainstorming thing. Our private calls are more like, okay, let's get down to brass tacks and actually plan out individual steps. But there's a benefit to me kind of talking in front of the community about like, okay, what am I doing? How am I doing it? And I think it's helpful for people who might want to be creators or, self-employed artists one day to see how I think about this stuff so they can maybe avoid some of my mistakes and learn to make their own. So, yeah, NJ Coffee Junkie will be joining me on Monday. We're going to go ahead and raid an NJ now. When you get over there, go ahead and say, howdy, y'all. Joe Hills raid here. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring.